Hey everyone, rampant inflation is running across our entire economy, but don't you worry, the Federal Reserve has a great plan. They don't have your best interest in mind, but they have a great plan. Stay tuned and we're going to talk about that today. All right, welcome back to Poplar Preparedness. This is Steve Poplar. I'm so excited to have you with us again here today. We're talking about food shortages, we're talking about supply chain disruptions, inflation that's happening, and the ever-present possibility of grid down and SHTF situations taking down our entire economy. Some of you would say that it is all planned, and I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you on that, but it makes no difference why it happens. It just matters that it can happen, and it's almost inevitable that those type of things will happen. So let's talk about inflation today. What is this plan that the Federal Reserve has come up with? You're not going to like it. Let's talk about inflation first off, where it even comes from. So we're printing billions and billions of dollars, many countries, and in some certain countries like ours, trillions and trillions of dollars. And that money is chasing fewer and fewer goods going around. So people are incentivized to trade their paper currency and their ones and zeros on their bank accounts for actual hard assets. And as inflation picks up more and more and things get more and more expensive, people realize that it's best to buy something now rather than paying more for it in the future, right? So that's what a lot of people are doing. They're realizing that their currency is going to become worth less and less, but those goods are going to retain their value. So they're being incentivized to go out and purchase more. And as they purchase more, there's shortages and prices continue to go even higher. So the problem is that there's too much money out there. If goods are down, if factories are producing less, then you would normally understand that people would be making less money, right? That's how that works. If you make less, you make less money. But the Federal Reserve has been pumping all this money into the banks and such like that so that there's more money even though there's less goods. This causes rampant inflation. But the Federal Reserve, being the clever psychopaths that they are, have determined that it's not just how much money is in the market, but it's also how fast that money turns around. See, if you have $1 and you just hold on to that dollar, for the sense of inflation, it's almost as if that dollar doesn't exist. So imagine this thought experiment, if you will. Imagine the Federal Reserve were to give every American in the United States $1 million, but the caveat was they weren't allowed to spend it for 10 years. In one sense, they just printed a ton of money. In another sense, you can't spend it, so it's not really impacting the current economy. You see, the velocity of that money is zero. It's almost as if that money doesn't exist. Now, if you take that money, if I take $100 and I go down and I buy some stuff with it, then the guy that I bought it from, he takes that money, he purchases replacement goods. Those factories and such that made those goods, they get that money. They go out and they spend that money on more resources. And the places that manufacture those resources or mine those resources, they hire more workers and buy more fuel. And you see how that $100 has now been spent like 6 or 7 times. See, the velocity of money is it's moving faster and faster and faster. So a lot more goods are purchased by that one set of that $100 bill, right? That's purchased a whole bunch of goods. Their idea is if purchases slow down significantly, then you can pump more money into the market. So instead of having a velocity of like 7 times, you want to crank that down to 3 times or 2 times of that money turning over in a given period of time, like a week or something like that, or a month. You want to slow down that money. So if you can give out all that money, you want to have this basically the same idea of locking down people from spending that $1 million, right? Federal Reserve wants to pump lots of money into the market, but then they want to make sure that you don't spend it. So how do they do that? Lockdowns. They've actually actively discussed how lockdowns slow people from spending money. Ouch. So they're talking about using lockdowns so that they can print more money so the banks can make more money and the bankers can be super, super happy, but yet not have to pay the penalty of having super high inflation, which will impact the political chances of certain parties. Like I said, psychopaths. So the idea is to hurt you and to stop you from spending your money so that they can give more money to their buddies over at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and such. That's their plan. And so that's why you see these lockdowns happening when it doesn't even make sense, right? The lockdowns don't make sense except when you start seeing that this is financial in origin. It doesn't even make sense from a political perspective, but when you think about it from controlling inflation, suddenly everything comes together. They want to print more money, but they don't want to have inflation. So they're going to lock you down, make sure you can't spend it. You can only spend it on certain things. Mostly, where do you spend more money? When you go out to eat or when you have groceries delivered to your house? Exactly. If you can't go out to bars and party and you can't go out to theme parks and you're going to spend less money. And if you spend less money, velocity of money goes down. They don't care if you make less money. They just want to make sure that you don't spend money. In fact, they do want you to make less money because that's your employer spending money on you. They want your employer to spend less money on you and you to spend less money on everything else. They want the velocity to slow down. Is it twisted? Is it sick? Yes, it is. It's the direct opposite of everything we've ever wanted to do as an economy, which was we want people to produce the most value possible. We want people to sell as much stuff that they've created, whether it's their labor or their ingenuity. We want people to increase the velocity of money, which is really just saying the economic activity. Now the Federal Reserve is literally trying to slow the economic activity of the United States, and this is not just the Federal Reserve. This is the Bank of England. This is the Bank of Australia. These are other reserve banks across the world who are thinking the same thing. They're all talking with each other. That's why, unfortunately, I think we're going to have more lockdowns. And it's not because of what they say it's for. It's not because of political reasons so much as it is financial. Am I crazy? Maybe. Check down in the links below. You will see some articles basically where they discuss this. And adios. Steve Poplar, out.